And we're going even deeper. We're welcoming in now Executive Director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer. Jamil, what a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Natasha.
Let's talk about this. Iran's foreign minister saying just this morning, he says diplomacy is no longer an option. What does that mean? What is your read into this? Is there still hope of any negotiation here?
Well, look, obviously Iran's foreign minister is posturing. The idea that diplomacy is not an option is a mistake for Iran. If Iran expects that they're going to solve this problem through war, they're going to be sadly mistaken, because if they decide to pick a real fight with the United States, that is not a fight that Iran can win. They know this, and they know that their only solution to this in the long run is some sort of a diplomatic solution.
Let's talk about Russia's role in all of this. I mean, of course, one of Iran's most important allies. Do you see them getting involved, and what could happen if so?
Well, I think that's probably the most interesting thing here is you haven't seen Vladimir Putin say anything about what's going on. We did see an odd series of tweets from Dmitry Medvedev suggesting somehow that Iran would continue to enrich uranium, would continue its pursuit and obtain nuclear weapons, and in fact also saying that there were nations, he didn't say Russia, but there were nations who would be willing to provide Iran with nuclear weapons themselves. Not clear that that represents the Russian government's position, but they have largely been silent with the exception of that Medvedev series of tweets. So we'll see what the real situation is going forward. But I think it's telling that they have not said anything aggressive against the United States thus far.
Yeah, would you expect that Iran is disappointed in Putin's deafening silence so far?
Well, certainly they're disappointed. I mean, they have been there for Putin. They've been supplying him with a series of drones, the Shahed drones, for his fight in Ukraine. He's also gotten support from the North Koreans with troops on the ground in Ukraine. If you had told somebody 5 years ago that you'd see North Korean troops on the ground in Ukraine in support of Russia, or Iranian generals teach them how to fly drones, nobody would have believed you. And yet here we are, and they're not backing Iran's play now. Russia's seen a real loss in their forces. They lost Syria. They've lost. They're now losing Iran's potential nuclear capability. This has been a real downer for Russia in a major way.
And China also has traditionally had a very strong strategic partnership with Iran. Where are they in all of this?
You know, China's relationship with Iran has been fairly quiet in the sense that they provide, Iran with technology, provide Iran with capabilities, but they don't do it sort of out loud and in a big showy way. They'll continue to do that. We'll see how this plays out in the long run. But again, they're not stepping up to say, hey, U.S., get out of the way. This is a China, by the way, that has been playing a more aggressive role in the region, trying to broker relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And so it's interesting also China's remained fairly silent here. They have a side in this fight. There's no question that Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, they're aligned on one side of this, where we are on the other side of that. That being said, it is noticeable how nobody's really stepping up to back Iran, even though Iran has, at least in the case of Russia, had Russia's back and has supplied China, by the way, with a huge amount of oil as well during these sanctions periods.
What do we need to be aware of and monitoring here at home? We see the Department of Homeland Security issuing a national terrorism advisory system bulletin today. They are warning about cyber attacks, about hacktivists from Iran as well. And we know Border Patrol agents have been warned about the growing risk of Iranian sleeper cells. What are you monitoring for?
Look, we've known for a long time that Iran wants to conduct attacks in the United States. They've tried to take out the Saudi ambassador to the United States back in the day in Washington, D.C. They've tried to go out and they've had active plotting against 3 members of the Trump administration, the group that helped take out Qasem Soleimani. President Trump actually pulled the protection for those 3 individuals. They are probably at significant risk. And, of course, Iran would like to conduct large-scale terrorist attacks, whether in Europe or the United States. We'll see if their capabilities have been so harmed by this drumbeat of attacks against Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, that they're unable to pull those off. But that's the most likely place I think they're likely to go, is terrorist attacks. Cyber is another realm where they may come at us. But if they really want to make an impact, there's 2 ways to do that against the United States. That's attack American forces in the region or conduct a terrorist attack. They should be warned, though. President Trump has been very clear. Do that and you will face retribution. Iran now sees that when Trump says that, he means it.
We're seeing the NATO summit set to take place next week. How are you anticipating last night's strikes to be addressed there?
Well, look, obviously, the NATO allies are going to be surprised they weren't informed ahead of time. There were very few people that were read in. They were probably informed as those jets were on their way, as those bombers were on their way to their targets. Even though they didn't cross over European territory, they flew very close to European territory through their airspace as they went through the straits there, the Strait of Gibraltar. And so it's likely our allies were informed, but they're likely to have wanted to know earlier. They'll be annoyed by that. But I think at the end of the day, the NATO allies are going to be very supportive of an effort that has successfully taken out a significant chunk of Iran's nuclear capabilities.
All right, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much.